Okay, so just checking the feet. So outside edge, like on tram lines. Just breathing, flexing the spine. So letting it extend backwards and then letting it flex forwards. Feel it as energy traveling. So here, as I extend, energy is going up the spine from the min-meng and down the spine from the min-meng. And then here, as I pull in, the energy is sucking back down, but into the Dan-Qian, down from the head and up from the tail. So the min-meng Dan-Qian is the center of the spine, really. I'd like to just relax the spine sufficient for the energy to just flow unimpeded. So the mind is just scanning the pathway, really. So we want to develop a mind that helps the energy. A wandering mind is one that inhibits and hinders the energy. So here, my mind, I'm using that sort of enthusiastic, vigilant openness to keep the channels free so that the energy can flow. If my mind leaves it, they'll just clam up. And the difficult part of the spine is just the lower bit, so from the min-meng down. pulling in is the yielding phase. It's like I'm trying to draw energy into me. So I'm breathing the energy in. And then the extending phase is the attacking phase. So the energy is coming out of me, down my legs and up my spine. So just feel the feet on the ground. We want to develop a root. So I want the feeling that as I extend here, the energy is squeezing down the legs and into the ground, through the surface of the ground. And then here it's like I'm sucking energy up from the ground and into my legs and up into my dantian. And then here I'm squeezing down. So I'm using the muscles in my legs to encourage flows. So really it's like peristalsis. So here there's a ripple that comes up my legs that's produced by the muscles. And then here there's a ripple that flows down the legs and into the ground. So breathing from and into the ground, it's very similar to what you would imagine feeding from the ground is. So here I'm squeezing something out of myself and into the ground. And then here, like sucking water up a straw, here I'm sucking something up from the ground, up my legs. So how do I use the muscles to produce these flows? So that's something you just have to discover through practice. And now let's just bring a bit of a turn in. So as you extend, just let it turn you to the side. And then as you flex and contract, let it pull you back to the front. So this is like the flow going down this leg, which is forcing this turn because the leg is tending to straighten. And then the leg is sucking at the ground and bending, and that will draw me back to the front. So it's this leg here is squeezing. It's not just pushing the ground, the foot is trying to twist outwards, so the toes are trying to go back. And then to start this, it just reverses, so the leg starts bending and the toes try to come round, and that will draw me to the front. And then this leg can take over to turn me to the side, and then can pull. So pulling at the ground will bring me back to riding horse with feet parallel, and pressing the ground will draw me into bow and arrow posture effectively. So I'm just breathing between the two stances. Bow and arrow, breathing in to riding horse, breathing out to bow and arrow, breathing in. So just try and feel it as the action of it's the back leg that's squeezing me out, and then it's the back leg becoming front leg that draws me back to the front. And then it's this leg, what was the front leg and is now the back leg, that pushes me round. There's something in my leg is being injected into the ground. I'm not just pushing the ground, something is flowing into it. And then here, I can suck up that tube. It's like a hypodermic. I'm injecting into the ground so that here I can draw something out of the ground and into me. So effectively, the legs are just doing exactly what the hands are doing, or trying to. So here, both feet are effectively pulling round. And then this one, out of that pulse, it sort of bounces out. So I'm pulling in here, and then it bounces, which will continue me that way. And then it bounces back, and then this one bounces me. Okay, now let's just bring it to riding horse. So again, just looking down at your feet. Just get used to looking from the heel, so from behind yourself. Yeah, so they don't have to be exactly forwards, but you don't want them out. If anything, too much in rather than out in the slightest. But just feel the ward off in the arms. So this sense of roundness, you're creating a round shape here. So it's not just like this, it's coming in. You want the same feeling in the feet, like the position of the feet on the ground with the big toe sort of angling in produces a roundness in the legs. Twisting the feet on the ground. So here I'm trying to twist my heels out. And then here I'm trying to twist the toes out. A minor version of what we've just been doing, but just concentrating on the feet. So this is my back opening and my front coming in. And then this is my back squeezing closed and my front coming out. So just try and get the action of the feet on the ground. Back to riding horse. So again, just check the feet. They shouldn't have moved, but invariably they do. And now just the figure of 8 around the hips. So just with the mind, tracing this line. Like your mind is the point of the pencil and you're drawing this line. You can think of it as going around the feet. And I want the line to be smooth and unbroken. So the tip of the pencil never comes off the ground. So the feeling is you're having to give each millimeter equal attention. So to keep an unbroken, smooth trace, the mind has to change. So as you go around the foot here, the mind really has to expand. So the spirit comes in to get you around the heel and then to start and change direction. And then here, so it's the moods are very similar to this. So this is like a mood of outward. And then this is a mood of sort of inward. So here, as you go around the foot, there's the mood of outward. And then here, this is coming back. So the mind has to adopt these moods in order to create this trace. And then just back to riding horse. Let's just try this as an exercise because it's a beautiful exercise. So you're just turning, just reaching down behind yourself and just scooping underneath your own foot. So this is just a nice way of just getting into the energy. Because the arm is very much with the energy that your back, what's coming out of your back. So don't look at the hand. To start with, you look at the hand just to get it going. And then just sort of bring your mind back to some sort of focus and just let this energy sort of just billow around you. So your arms are with the energy. And your mind is just trying to stay out of the equation, really. So as soon as my mind starts thinking to itself, all of that energy will suck back in. And then back to front. And now tracing the figure of 8 with the energy. So effectively using the legs like we were doing in order to do this exercise when we introduced the turn. So in order to turn to my left, I squeeze this leg, I squeeze this leg and try and twist the foot out. The leg and the arm are with the energy. My torso is just with my mind. So from here, I just turn this way by squeezing this leg and extending the arm. And then I pull the foot round and contract the leg. And that winds my body in towards it. And then this one can go out. So I'm tracing the figure of 8, but with my other arm, if you like, or the way I'm thinking of it now is like with the energy mind, with the energy. So I turn this way with my mind and my energy can then escape out from my back. So what we're trying to do all the time in Tai Chi is get the energy to come round to the front and become involved in the action. So my mind turning to the side enables the energy to come out of the blind side of me. So I turn my mind one way, turn my mind to the left, and the energy comes out the right side. I turn to the right with my mind, and my energy comes out of the left side. So ultimately, what we would like is for the energy to lead, for the energy to lead the mind. feel the action on the ground of your feet. You want the legs to feel like tentacles, like elastic tentacles that can extend, can stretch, and then will just naturally contract. So this is my leg extending, stretching, and then it just naturally wants to wind up again. I have two distinct relationships with the ground. One, I interact with the ground to move my body. And then two, I interact with the ground in order to exchange energy with it. So here, this leg is inserting it, it's injecting into the ground. And then here, it very much feels like I'm sucking something out. I'm drawing the plunger of the hypodermic up. And then this one extends. Riding horse, again, just looking down. This sense that the heels are just pushing apart. So what that will do is just loosen across the sacrum. And it will feel like the sacrum sort of expands into this loosened space. So by widening the heels, I allow the sacrum to expand. So all the time in Tai Chi, we're trying to reverse the sequence. So we're trying to practice sufficiently to allow the sequence to reverse. So what I would like is for the sense of expansion of the sacrum to actually force my heels apart. And that's just a matter of spirit, this thing that just switches the mind around, that's spirit. So when spirit comes in, everything flips, if you like. So the heels are very gently just trying to drift apart, like you're trying to create this shape. Remember the feathers? So, or the wings on the heels. But the toes are also trying to twist out. And that's just the column of rising energy that's coming up the front from the ground. So here it's like you're creating this cloak that surrounds you from the back. And here you're just creating this upward flow within the cloak. And now let's try knocking the gates of life. So the first warm-up exercise, but done the way we've been doing it recently. So I turn to the side, like the breathing exercise, I turn to the side and everything opens up. And then as I turn back to the front, I just allow the hands to come in and strike. And then I turn to the side again. So extending and contracting. So just slowly to start with, just to make sure we get it. So this is where the change in mood is really important. So this is just really pulling and contracting. So you want the pull back to the front to tense these muscles sufficient to protect them from the blow of the fist. This is like sort of long, sort of extending forever energy. And then this is just a short. And back to the front. Check my feet. Like a little ritual. And now let's just try pushing the wall. So the important thing here is that my sacrum just drops and tries to make the spine vertical. And then you just sort of pace. So your legs are trying to squeeze your arms into the wall, and your arms are trying to squeeze the legs into the ground. So I'm using the muscles in my arms and legs to try and squeeze something down from my torso and into the ground. And then just round with the back to the wall. Outside edges still parallel. And then just sort of rock, pump the floor with the feet to try and press the sacrum onto the wall. So I want something to ooze out of my sacrum and into the wall. And I also want something to ooze out of my foot and into the ground. So just think of the image of external and internal. We're just always trying to break through the skin of the external and penetrate into the internal. So you can just think of that with the ground and the wall. I'm trying to get through its surface and explore beneath the surface. And it's the same with meditation. So we're effectively doing the same thing to ourselves, really, trying to get through the external of the ego and just explore what's beneath it, explore the depths. Just try and discover what was there before the ego. Trying to find what in Zen they call your original face. The you before it became plastered, before you put on your makeup, before you made yourself up. And so effectively, you're just doing a figure of 8 around the hips again, using its interaction with the wall to rouse you in ways you're not accustomed to. A beginner's mind, we're always searching for that. So can I do a familiar exercise just a little bit differently? So this is what beginner's mind is really. It's just a mind that's more interested in what's before it, what's in front of it, what's going on around it, than it is in itself. And then just into riding horse, but leaning against the wall. And then up. Okay, let's just try just the form a couple of times. Attention posture with the toes in. It's more difficult to lift the foot off the ground, but again, this feeling that the heels are swelling apart. So your sacrum is becoming the really dominant, visible bone in the body. Yeah, because of the way we have the feet now with the outside edges dominant, often you don't need to bring the foot round because they're almost round already. So get the heel down and then just straighten this leg to push yourself down into this leg. But remember, this leg really has to press the ground to push this hip round. Otherwise it will trail. And again, this one really has to push the ground and straighten to get this hip back. Again, I get the heel down and I just press. I press into the ground to drive myself back into the spring of this leg. And then I'll bounce out of it in the right way. And then let's just try one on the other side. Just really feel your little toes trying to extend parallel. Heel down first. So I press the ground with the heel to drive myself into this leg. And then I'll just spring round. Heels trying to push apart to free up the sacrum. Most of my weight's in this leg. You can think of the whole form as just tracing the figure of 8 around the feet. So here I'm going around this foot. And then here I'm going around this foot. Again, pressing with the heel and then around this foot. Pressing with the heel and then around this foot. And then around the back foot. And then around this foot. Around the front foot, and then just a little blip around the back foot to bring this hand in. Around the front foot again. Here around the back foot. Around the front foot, and then just a blip around the back foot. Here, just concentrate on keeping the hips forwards. And then just using this ground, I just really want to get myself into the leg. I have to get a sense that I'm underneath my own dantian. Otherwise, I'll always be over it. I'll always be above it. There's a sense that you're always undermining your own body when you're doing the form. Here, I'm using this purchase here to really get down underneath my belly. And so you can't afford to let too much weight into the front foot. My front leg is really pushing me back all the way. Again, use this leg to drive yourself down this leg, and then you can do the figure of 8 around the foot. So this is difficult, getting this back foot off the ground without your bum sticking out. And then you really have to straighten this leg here to get yourself to turn from the hips rather than simply twisting the shoulders round. So I'm straightening this leg to push forwards here, and then I'm bending it. I'm bending it to yield. Straightening this leg here and then bending it. And then if you want to keep the toes forwards, just bring it in simply. So if I want to bend the leg, if I want to yield and draw something in towards me, I must first have straightened the leg and extended. So in order to yield, you must first attack. So we know that in order to attack, we must first yield, but it also works the other way. So you don't have to think of it as attack, just think of it as opening up and extending, just extending your interest out. And then as soon as it touches something, it can just draw it in. So this is softness, really. So softness is just that mind that is always interested and optimistic, but always ready to turn and yield in order to take what it's discovering into its own energy, into its own body of experience. So we're becoming a consumer, but in the right way. We're consuming energy. We're just bringing it in all the time. And then we can use that to create structures. So John, he once said to me quite early on, once he realized I was serious, he'd just come over and just give me sort of just very short instructions because he knew that I'd work on it. And he says, to be successful in this game, you just have to gather, just like a little bag of tricks or a bag of principles that are always with you, that you're always operating from. Yielding, natural, roundness. So all of these things, softness, just words really, just a few words that you just always are always coming back to. Energy, spirit, root. So a root is really just something that's come out of you and into the ground. So it's always trying to get through surfaces and into the depths. And the meditating facing the wall, it's Zazen. So when the Bodhidharma brought Buddhism from India to China, apparently he spent 9 years in a cave, just meditating with his facing the back of the cave, focusing that small mind and allowing your big mind to expand out of your back and into the room. So traditionally, in Dogen's Zazen, they would all face the wall. So you'd have a room and there'd be a platform about this high off the ground around the room, and their cushions would be on there. They'd all be sitting about 1 meter from the wall with their backs facing into the room, and the master would just be standing in the middle, just making rounds every now and then to make sure the students weren't drifting off or their postures weren't corrupting. So just imagine him there. He's just being drenched in all of this back energy of all the students. That's the right exchange, really. So the student needs practice and the teacher needs energy. So he needs to be just soaking up good energy to feed his own traveling.